Mic. Camera. Action.
Hello, Drew. How are you, dear?
Oh my goodness!
I only miss I can't be there and give you a hug.
I know. I wish I could give you a hug too. And I was looking at this picture of us from Boys on the Side and just thinking, does it feel like it was yesterday? Does it feel like a long time ago? What is time and space?
Yeah.
But it was just nice to look at it.
Does it feel like yesterday or does it feel like 60 years ago? I mean, but now I'm looking at that. I remember where we were. Tucson, Arizona. Leave the set. I remember I was driving a little blue truck. We drive back to Tucson from the set. I remember you telling me how much you loved avocados back then.
I would like to be buried under an avocado tree. I would.
Yes.
And you were like playing the bongos. I remember that was happening a lot when you were off work.
Yes, I've been played bongos long before I got arrested for playing bongos.
All right. Welcome back to the Filmography, the show dedicated to watching every credited film from an actor's complete back catalogue from past debut through to present day in chronological order. Each episode, I'm joined by an esteemed guest to watch and discuss the next entry from their focused filmography and consider how it ranks amidst their career and whether we can trace any typecasting trends or topic traits or theatrical tics. Today's guest is Femme On fantastique, Ria Carrogan. Today's film is Herbert Ross's Boys on the Side from 1995. We watch, you listen, and hopefully watch along too. So, Ria, thank you for joining me.
Hello. I had to mute for the all right, because I knew that I would enjoy it too much and I didn't want to ruin your intro.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you. Well, laughing in the background would always be appreciative laughing in the background.
Yeah, not at you.
No, with me. Absolutely. Although there wasn't much laughing with this movie. I'll put my cards on the table early. This wasn't a laugh riot, this movie. But yeah, I thought you were an interesting person to get on for this. Having never seen the movie before, but looking at the plot synopsis and obviously us growing up together, knowing the sort of films we watch together, both having an affinity for Drew. Yeah, this would be interesting. And then, of course, with all your Femme On hat on as well, there's a lot to talk about, I think, with this one.
I mean, is there?
Well, I think it wants there to be, but that's why I'm interested whether there is or not.
It's a weird film.
Oh yeah.
It's the tone is all over the place. I don't get it. And in scenes where I'm like, this is not funny, but I feel like you're trying to make it a comedy. So
there's one I've got in mind particularly, but let's see if we agree on this one.
So the scene where they go to pick up Drew Barrymore.
Yeah, pick up Holly, absolutely.
Yeah, and she's being beaten by her boyfriend.
Yes, domestic abuse.
Horrific abuse. Absolutely horrific. And they, like Whoopi Goldberg's character Jane, just sort of like, oh, I'm just going to sit and have a beer.
Yeah.
And like, I was like, what is happening? What is happening? And Robin, so her whole thing is, maybe I can help out with your drug dealer boyfriend who's beating the shit out of you by helping him find his drugs. What is this solution? I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, that's about 20 minutes in, maybe. Yeah, we've met Whoopi Goldberg's Jane, and we've met Mary Louise Parker's her name Robin, isn't it, at this point? Yeah, absolutely. And they go and pick up Holly on the way on this girl power road trip. I use that term very deliberately, knowing you'd shake your head and make that noise. Yeah, that is an awful scene. Emma and I watched this together. We had to do it in two sittings. We couldn't get through it in one.
I did it in 2 sittings as well because I was like, oh.
Yeah, I had enough at a certain point, and this scene just really stands out. My exact notes are Nick domestic abuse, open quote, comedy, close quote, because it's totally played that way. It's weird. It's like slapstick, lampoony.
Yeah.
And when Holly defends herself, he's just slammed her head into the wall.
Yeah.
She grabs a bat and hits him over the head with the bat. I don't know about you. I'm watching it going, you go, girl. I'm being ironic there, obviously, but I'm thinking like, yes, bash that dickhead's head in. They're all like, no, don't do this. Oh, this is a terrible. What? No, like this dude deserves it. It's weird.
And it's so weird. I mean, we've just gone straight into it, but it's so.
We have to with this scene, I think.
It's the way, again, Whoopi Goldberg plays it, who is actually a fantastic actress, and like. You've seen her in other roles where she's in dramatic roles or comedy roles or straddling the both. Fine, she does it really well. And I feel like clearly she has no idea what to do in this scene because he beats her as well, really violently.
Yeah, hits her in the face.
And then she's just like, sitting on the sofa. It's been like, oh, Nick or whatever his name is. And and there's no sense of danger.
Mm-hmm.
It's so strange. I can't figure out what they're going for in this scene. And I think that sets up the tone for the rest of the film. Like, you watch something like, I'm going to spoil some other things. So you watch like Yellow Jackets. In Yellow Jackets, the TV show, like one of the characters commits a murder. And her female friends like come along. I mean, obviously, by the way, I understand this was from 1995 and it's now 2014, but whatever. But like, and they come and help her and they take it seriously. But you know, they do that thing that in friendships do. There is like a little bit of humor, dark humor, right? But like you said, the humor in this is for this scene particularly, is like so over the top. And I'm like, are we supposed to think that it's funny that Holly's going, well, let's just call your friend who you sold all the drugs to or whatever? I just don't get it.
There's even like the hard comedy cut because she hits him over the head and he's like kind of passed out and there's like and then it's like, anybody got any tape? And there's like a hard comedy cut. So the next scene is that he's in a chair all taped and tied up and it's a bit like wah, wah, wah.
And like the tape's all like a bit chaotic and you know.
It is, it's not good. And I think you're right. It's quite symptomatic of like this film kind of wants to be a bit of everything. It wants to be a kind of road trip comedy, but it wants to be a big issue, sentimental movie. It wants to be about female friendship and, that's the thing that we talk about a lot, that found family kind of idea. It wants to kind of do all of this, but it doesn't really do any of it successfully.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that scene, and then the other biggest clanger for me was, so they run away, and he's dead. Because they technically kill him.
No,
they hit him with the baseball bat, and then the chair falls over, and he falls onto the baseball bat again, or something, and then that kills him.
I think he's like in withdrawal, isn't he? And then he like passes out.
Yeah,
who knows? But
because drugs. And then we find out that Holly is pregnant. But then the joke is, at the end, the baby's black.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? And it's and it's almost like a comedy, like.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if there actually was, but I felt like there was like a comedy noise in the background when Whoopi Goldberg, when Jane and Matthew McConaughey's character, because he's fallen in love with Drew Barrymore, even though she's pregnant and a criminal, and he's a cop. He sticks by her, even though he dobs her in. Sure. And they're like running, oh, I'm so excited to see the baby. And I feel like there's like a womp womp.
Yeah,
like I don't think there is.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's like
I don't think there is, but I heard it.
Well, because you almost get that. So yeah, you're right. It's Whoopi and it's Abe. Well, it's Whoopi and Abe. I'm now mixing.
Oh.
It's Whoopi's Jane and McConaughey's Abe. He's also called Abraham Lincoln in
Abe
this, which
Lincoln.
is another great joke. And there was a missed opportunity for a joke that remind me if I don't come back to that, I'll come back to. But yeah, because they both turn up and then they sort of the camera shows the baby, and then it sort of shows them like looking head onto the camera, but then doing that like comedy look to each other, like like you said, like yeah, it's so poorly done. And it was kind of set up, like Holly said earlier, like, oh, it could be his, it could be somebody else's. And she's like a big flirt all through the movie, isn't she? But yeah, the payoff, the payoff from the way that the director chooses to present it is lacking.
It is, yes.
Considering this film also has somebody dying of AIDS, and this
Oh my
film
God,
has a
just
black gay
have-
character. There's a lot going on.
The person dying of AIDS, right? The stuff that could have been done really well
Yeah.
is having. So Whoopi Goldberg is Jane. She's a musician. She is gay and she is black, right? She's a lesbian.
Great.
Interesting.
Interesting.
She is supposedly the protagonist of this film.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Well, she's the thread that brings the other two characters together and creates the found family, right? Apart from in her own film, she becomes the magical lesbian. So it's through her that everybody else becomes a better person. She uses her magic lesbian powers to make everybody more empathetic and understanding and
even
bring
Robin's
everybody
mum
together.
and-
Yeah. And I'm like, it's a miracle you didn't kill her off. Like, because, she's the magical gay person who normally you kill off. Like, so let's take that as a win. Like, so just like absolutely bonkers. And it could have been so interesting just having that. And like, she's like traveling across country because of heartbreak, etc. And then you've got Robin with their AIDS, with HIV. And I love the way they handle this until the end. And they handle it as in like she, so when did Philadelphia come out? So I think this is after Philadelphia, right?
Yeah, 92, 93. So
yeah, that sounds about right, yeah. And I think handling somebody with HIV who can live a normal life and have normal relationships, can have sex, with the proper protections, doesn't need to be scared of relationships, is fantastic. It's really empowering. We're in the era of people being shocked that Princess Diana went and held the hands and hugged like somebody with HIV and AIDS and so I like really like that it's doing that, and it's it's applauding that, and that Robin isn't in a gay relationship. So lots of AIDS stuff's all about gay men, right? So it's showing that a heterosexual person can get it. And I think they handle it really well, and they handle the characters around her, handle it really well. Nobody judges her, they support her, all of this sort of stuff. But then at the end, it's like she's the magical AIDS patient who brings everyone together. And I'm like, what is happening? We don't have to have her death happen for the emotional payoff of what's happened to these three women, but instead we get her in, look, and it's not aged well, this awful makeup to make her look ill and make her look like she's about to die, but it's her magical AIDS death that brings everybody back together and like makes her mum like actually open up and become a real person and stuff. And I'm just like, we don't need the magical sick person. We don't need the magical gay person. We can tell this story without them without those being their only traits that make everybody else better.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It feels sort of overstuffed, but also underexplored at the same time.
Yeah,
it's weird,
right? Yeah,
because it's got these could be totally different movies, or even if you've got them in the same movie, the way they choose to explore these things. I thought the first moment when Jane finds out that Robin is HIV positive, and she says herself, doesn't she, I've got AIDS. And I know there's that line, and there's that confusion between what is what and what is not. I guess that's
Yeah.
probably gone away now, but around the time in the mid-90s, there was that kind of confusion, I think, publicly about what those two things are, because it's actually like pneumonia, isn't it? I think that she dies of in the end of
That
the
she gets,
movie.
yeah.
But I thought that moment when she first finds out is quite interesting, because Robin goes to be close to Jane, and then she doesn't want to. But then because Robin gets upset, she has a breakdown about her life and her situation. Jane then feels like she has no choice but to hug her, and then she's immediately over it. I was like, oh, wow, that's really maturely handled. Like, there is a natural reaction, and that's kind of understandable, particularly around this era where we're still learning about this disease and there's so much misinformation. I thought, and then the fact that their bond, which I don't really buy anyway, but their bond that they formed over like 3 weeks on the road together, means that she sort of forgets that because it's more important that she's there for her. I thought that was a really nice moment personally, but then it takes itself to melodramatic places later. As I agree with you that it didn't need to go.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I will say, you don't think a bond would happen over a 3-week road trip. Just go to a women's bathroom on a night out.
This is why you're here, you see? This is why you're here.
Would 100% happen. But yeah, and I think it's those aspects of the friendship between them as well that works really well, which is why it's shame that everything is left out. Like, Robin and Jane, like, aren't horrified that I'm confusing all names, that like Holly's being abused. Like, they're not horrified. Like, if that was one of my friends, like, we would just, and it just gets dropped. It just gets dropped. We get a little bit, which again is sort of handled well, but not as well as it could be. We get this little bit of her being like, well, I'm going to go back because where else will I go? And like, incredibly powerful. Lots of people in abusive relationships feel the exact same way and end up going back. And I was like, great, brilliant. This is really interesting to explore. But then the only reason she doesn't come back is because his death's reported in the paper and the other two chase after her. And it's like, well, I get, obviously you can't go back because he's dead. But actually, if he wasn't dead, we could have explored that really interesting relationship of why she would go back and how her friends could look after her and not do that. There's a film with Anna Kendrick. I can't remember what it's called. It's literally just popped into my head. And she plays somebody who's in a emotionally abusive relationship with someone. And she goes like off on a weekend with her friends. And it navigates how her friends sort of get her to talk about what's happening and how to sort of like help her feel safe and stuff like that. And it's so interesting. Like, I'm looking up what it's called because I can't remember. Alice Darling, it's called. It came out in 2022. And it's so interesting because it's like this group of friends and they're away on this weekend and they fall out constantly, but then help each other out, and they fall out a lot because she's like incredibly difficult to be around. But it shows like the true nature of, how it is when you're friends with somebody who's going through this horrific thing. But in this film, but in Boys on the Side, it's just like, oh, he beat you, we had a beer, oh, we hit him with a baseball bat, oh, let's go off, oh, you're pregnant, oh, now you fancy a cop. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure why the death of this dude, basically on the same day, would make the newspaper. Maybe it's the next day, but it's not very clear. I will confess that the joke as they're driving and Robin's trying to tell her that he's died did make me chuckle when she wrote when Holly says like, "Who's Morty?" That got me. Actually,
and then she does like that. Oh, dead.
They're doing like exactly. So they're doing that to each other, and like Holly's like, "Oh, this is so funny," because Drew Barrymore was doing that kind of like ditzy blonde thing that she did for a while around the mid-90s. This was kind of the thing she was doing, wasn't it? She's also clearly trying to break free of her child star status, because we'd had Poison Ivy a couple of years before, and this is like a couple of gratuitous boob flashes. I mean, not really complaining over here.
And if you're interested more in that, go and listen to You Must Remember This, the last season. I think they talk about like 90s sex. Katrina Longworth talks about 90s sex, and she has an episode on Drew Barrymore, and it's excellent.
Oh, I am going to listen to that after this. Actually, yeah, that'd be cool. Because she's a really interesting one. Of like, she was a really little kid, and then suddenly
Yeah.
she's not a little kid anymore. Okay, that's interesting. I'm going to listen to that. But yeah, that bit did make me chuckle. But it, again, I think you're right. That's symptomatic of the issue of this movie. Is like, we want to have this thing, but we've got so many things we can't really explore it because we're on to the next thing.
Yeah. And that even happens. So we haven't talked about Matthew McConaughey yet, but he comes in.
Oh, to be fair, he's not in the movie yet at this point. He's not in about 48 minutes. I clocked it at.
Oh God, is it that long?
Mm.
Like, and so they moved to, I think they're in like Arizona, right?
Tucson in Arizona, yeah.
Yeah. And they are like getting on with life, and we find out they're all like living in a house together, all working in the same bar together. We are introduced in this bar by a character going,
"Oh,
a body like that wasted on a 12-year-old."
Yeah, gross.
And I stopped it, and I was like, to no one, because I was by myself. I was like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah, and he's meant to be like
and
a romantic lead.
It. He's supposed to be a romantic lead, and then I like did like a little 30-second rewind because it's like, I think I imagined that. I think I literally had an out-of-body experience or blacked out or something, couldn't inserted this horrific line into a film. No. He says it. And then he becomes the romantic interest for Robin. For Robin.
Yeah.
And I was like, what?
He's talking about his boss's daughter. I mean, it's gross no matter who it is. But I mean, the fact that that's his boss's daughter, she's within earshot. He's talking to another guy that works behind the bar. Yeah, it's all rank. It's horrible.
But you thought I'd imagined it. I thought I'd had a stroke or something.
Mm.
And I was like, the signs of stroke are different in women. This is clearly the sign. No,
I agree with you. I clocked it. I literally wrote that down as well. I wrote down James Remar's Alex said a body like that on a 12-year-old, and I was like, oh my God. But what's weird is then later, again, to reflect what we keep coming back to with this movie, is that actually the way he behaves with Robin is really maturely handled. It's really great. Yeah. Jane tells him when she's setting them up.
Which I have problems with as well. I have problems with that whole thing. There is no way a gay person would accidentally out. I mean, they might not. Everybody's perfect, but the fact that Jane accidentally outs as such Robin and her HIV status is bullshit. I don't like. It's so out of sync with her character. I can't. She seems to, not be the sort of character that would do that. And it's just been inserted so that there's a conflict. So the two of them, so we get the third act drama that they like break up and then come back together to help Holly. Like, it's so annoying. Sorry, I went over your point, but he's so
he handles
understanding with their HIV status.
Yeah.
And everything.
They like hook up, don't they? Like it's like a Day of the Dead type festival.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah. I don't know, it's something like that. I got that sort of feeling of it. I don't know. But
well, again,
somewhere between Day of the Dead and Barn Dance.
Yeah. It's like, well, is Tucson known for?
I don't know, but there was definitely. I got that sense of like that because it's a gay bar, isn't it? I think that they work.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Anyway, that's all by the by, isn't it? Yeah, I thought the way they handled that scene because they hook up at the dancing and they start kissing, and then they go back to her place, and the way he's like, "It's like I know it's okay. We'll be safe. I still want to be with you." I thought that was great. I thought it was really nicely handled. Yeah. His acting was really good in that scene. It's just, it's weird. It feels like a film that is progressive and regressive at the same time.
Absolutely,
and that is fucking mad that it can manage to do both those things. Because, we have to talk about the cunt conversation at some point. Like, great scene. Yeah. Where Jane's getting Robin to, she says like Nunu or something. Like, she has the names at her, her traditional middle class like mother is passed down to her, and Jane's trying to break her out of this. And she's getting her to say cunt, which is a really good scene. And then she says it and she's like shouting it, and that scene again, really well written, really well acted. And is kind of another example of like where when this does something right, it's about trying to show kind of progressiveness and women. I guess you can tell me if I've read this wrong. Women kind of reclaiming that word, and that's what I got from it anyway.
Yeah, again in 1995.
Yeah,
amazing.
I was surprised actually.
Yeah, so I've actually seen this film before, but remember like nothing of it, and I don't remember this scene at all. And so when it was coming up, like I was then nodding away because my whole thing is if you can't say vagina and penis, then you shouldn't be having sex. Like if you can't use the real words, then what's happening? Vulva, if it's the outside. And so I'm like there with Jane, I'm like with you, and I thought she would say like vagina. Instead, she doesn't. She says cunt, and I was like, great, actually great. Like 1995, a black gay character is saying this, and fantastic.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
I don't know where I was going with that.
No.
Fantastic.
But I think that's what this film does, because unfortunately, it's a black gay character that when we're first introduced to her, says go back to Pakistan to a taxi driver, and I was like, whoa, like we're meant to like you.
About that. Yeah.
So all of this is just so symptomatic, so emblematic, so symptomatic of like how this just doesn't quite know what it wants to do. It wants her to be kind of foul-mouthed. This ain't your sister Mary Clarence, is what this scene's trying to say. So many F-bombs, so much fuck in the first 5 minutes from Whoopi Goldberg. And I know, like, before Sister Mary Clarence and Ghost, and, she was a bit more edgy and stuff. But even Jumping Jack Flash is a bit more edgy than, late 80s Whoopi's a bit more edgy than early 90s Whoopi.
I've not seen that film in ages. We used to watch that all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I guess, next gen Whoopi is very different to that as well. But yeah, again, like, so misjudged, that line. Like, how, as you said, like, how would a black gay woman be picking on somebody else for like kind of heritage and where they're from? But all of this, we hate to repeat ourselves, but we seem to be doing it a lot. But that's because this film keeps inviting us to do it. That this is good, but this is awful, and this is thoughtful, but this is thoughtless, and this is progressive, but this is regressive. It's all over the shop.
Yeah, and I feel like that's some of the issues with the characters as well. Like you can't get a hold of them, and I think actually Abe is the perfect example of that. So he is a police officer, and Holly falls in love with him whilst pregnant, and it's like, oh, he's such a good guy because he's hanging around. He still likes her even though she's pregnant. They even say that in the film, and I'm like, okay. Pregnant women are still entities in their own right. They're not just pregnant lady. No, he's so kind. She's so pregnant, and but he's like this upstanding police officer guy who Holly trusts enough, or is, I guess, because she's ditzy blonde, stupid enough to tell him what actually happened. And then he dobs her in. I can't think of the official words. I'm just going to keep her saying dobs. But he stays by her. He stands by her. I'm still going to be there for him. I'm like, are we supposed to like him? Are we supposed to go, what a great upstanding guy? And I'm like, so he loves Holly, but not as much as being a police officer, not as much as the law. And I just like, what are we supposed to? I can't get a grip on what we're supposed to think of him. And it's not a film where it's like, oh, mystery character. What do we think of them? So I was just with Dan talking about Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene with Spider Dan, right? And John Hawke's character in that is very much a character like you can't get a grip of, you can't understand. This is not Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene, clearly. But like, it's not like he's even like this mythical figure. He's just Abe, named after Abraham Lincoln, who's a police officer.
Yeah, I mean, he walks in, he looks like Matthew McConaughey, and actually the first thing I thought was like, oh, is he playing a stripper? Because he walks into
that as well.
Yeah. And he's got like the classic flat top haircut, and like, so he just reeks of like kind of like what's the phrase? But like he's a cop, but he's like dedicated to his job, and he's like straight laced and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Other than once I realised he wasn't going to be a stripper, to my eternal disappointment. I'll have to wait for Magic Mike for that one.
Oh, who are you doing that with?
Look how he's perked up.
I'm perked up. Genuinely an excellent film about male friendship.
I'm really excited to watch it, actually. It's one that's been on my watch list for a long time.
It's fantastic.
and I'm very comfortable with my own sexuality that I don't mind watching sexy men dancing in front of me. I'm fine with that.
But it's so much more than that. Anyway,
yeah, I know
interrupted
it is too. But, yeah, so he's this like totally straight laced guy, isn't he? So like, we know who he is because of how he presents himself. Like the haircut is actually quite well chosen. The way he wears his police uniform is all very like buttoned up, and they kind of take these pains to show him as somebody who is, yeah, dedicated is the right word. So he's dedicated to his job. He's dedicated to Holly. I sort of thought the decision to do that was interesting. I guess I sort of thought actually this is, this could go to this could go down an interesting avenue, that he felt compelled to do the right thing. But even though it's the wrong thing for Holly, he's not just like, he doesn't turn his back on her. I thought that could have gone somewhere interesting. It doesn't really. It just goes to a place where he just keeps saying the same thing over and over. But I think he's really hampered by who they want him to be. I got real Forrest Gump vibes.
Yeah.
From his performance in this.
Right. Yeah.
And off the back of his performance in the movie I just did with Spider-Dan, funnily enough, Texas Chainsaw: The Next Generation, when that performance was not great either. Like considering this is only film 5, to be fair to him, he's already trying to show his range. But yeah, he's not quite. He's
fresh in this. He feels fresh. He feels uncomfortable. He feels like he doesn't know what he's going to do. And then, when you start thinking about, so I'm just about to look at his filmography, between this to like A Time to Kill, which I've not seen in a long time, but from what I recall, he is absolutely fantastic in it.
Yeah, oh yeah.
To then Contact, which he's also amazing in, Frailty, which he's incredible in. Like, it's kind of like he feels so fresh in this. And then a year later, we've got A Time to Kill, in which he's incredible. And it's really strange. It's a strange performance.
Yeah, I don't think he, much like we said with Texas Chainsaw, I don't think he's quite ready for this role. But also he's not being directed well.
Oh God, no, I don't think he is. Actually, I think that's a great point. I think it's a real shame because I think the time is split up really nicely between the 3 female characters. I think there are some cliched moments, but mostly we get a good sense of who they are. Whereas you could take him out of this and he could just be random copper that shows up and arrests Holly. And it wouldn't take away from anything else of the film. You could completely remove his character because his character isn't there to do anything. It's like he doesn't even give Holly any agency because all she does is go along with what he says. In fact, there's moments when like her friends are saying to her, oh, you should do this and you should do that. And she's like, no, I'm going to do what Abe says. So in fact, like he takes away her agency rather than empowering her.
Yeah, it's true. I agree with all of that. I mean, I guess he gets that one nice moment when she's going to prison. He says, "Oh, look after the baby for 6 months," and that again for 1995, that feels pretty progressive. That he will just give up his career and look after somebody's half black baby. I know I sort of said that horribly on purpose because that's how the film makes me feel. Rather than I was sort of un-PC then on purpose because the film's un-PC.
But it's such a weird choice that it makes, and I can't understand. When like the main protagonist is black, are we supposed to find it amusing?
Well, I wonder.
Maybe they've not put that much thought into it. I think I'm probably putting more thought into it than they did.
Probably. I think it's just meant to be like a sight gag, wasn't it? But I think I also wondered if it's to do with that idea of like all the way through this movie, and you tell me how you feel about it as well. We get this constant like Jane always falls for women she can't have. She always falls for like a straight woman who's not interested, or she falls for that. And they're sort of hinting, is that Holly at times?
Yeah.
Because I couldn't really quite work out how Jane and Holly would know each other, to be honest.
Yeah.
I guess Nick's a musician and Jane's a musician. Maybe they've met there at some point, but there's like 10 years difference between them. And it feels, that's in real life, it feels more in the movie.
Definitely.
But yeah, I wondered if it was meant to be a bit of a like a, I don't know, like it's a good thing because Jane's black, so she'll know what to do with the
with the black baby,
yeah, and also like, well, we unfortunately, I literally wrote in my notes. Where did I put it? Let me see. I wrote, keep it a friendship and don't develop into an unfulfilled relationship, and that was like me sitting there watching the film, keeping my fingers crossed, thinking like, just don't go down that road. It's another road we don't need. And of course, inevitably, we get it where like Jane declares her love for Robin.
So annoying.
In a romantically relationship way rather than
So
in a
annoying.
found family friendship way. So I don't know. Again, it's just another one of these like mixed things where like, you're right, probably we are talking about this more than they ever did in the scripting and directing and editing phases of this movie.
I think it tries too hard to make us cry as well. Like it really wants to make you cry. And I'm like, it had the opposite effect because I'm like, I know what you're doing.
Yeah, that you know, at the end when you've got, you said like, when she's in the makeup and she's all frail and withered and sitting in a wheelchair. I couldn't work out the timeline because one scene before Holly was going to prison and was basically having sex with Abe in prison, and then the next scene they're all there. So was that meant to be 6 months later? I couldn't work it out, or was she released, or what? I sort of got over that quickly because I thought, who cares? The film's about to finish, thank goodness. And then they do this weird shot where like she starts singing, Robin starts singing, but because of her pneumonia lungs, she can't keep it up. So we cut to Jane, and Whoopi Goldberg's got an amazing voice. She starts singing, and the camera does this like dreamlike pan across the room. And I was thinking like, okay, Robin and Jane, they've got a connection. Holly, even Abe, the mum's there. I think it's Annie or Anna, like who runs the bar. I kind of get all that. You've got pedo James Remar over there. I get where they're all there, but there were like 30 people in there, and it's like panning over. Like I was like, who the fuck are all these random people? I don't care about. They're all like sad because Robin's going to die soon. Well, fair enough, but who are you?
Yeah.
It's such a weird shot where we spend more time with people that we've literally never seen in this film than we do with the people we're supposed to have a connection with. So it totally, I agree with you, takes away any kind of viewer emotional connection, because I was thinking, was like, who's that? Who's that?
Yeah.
Who's that?
Why do we care? And there's one scene when, well, it is this scene, but it's a shot when Jane is singing, and there's just some people behind, some extras just being like, I'm so sad.
Yeah.
And I was like, it would have been so powerful if they just like darkened the background and just had Whoopi singing, right?
Oh yeah, like on stage, like lights down moment. Yeah.
Like, and just made it really intimate, because I think one of the things that this film does do well, although I'm about to, after this, immediately counteract that, is the intimacy of female friendships. Like, I do think it shows that sort of, there are times when they're just looking at each other and they just know, or, you know, they're just saying one word or one sentence and they just know. Now, I'm going to go back on that and say the beginning of the film, and maybe it's because they're just getting to know each other, but when Holly is telling Robin about Jane being gay, I was like, has the person who's written this ever met a gay person? Because I just felt really like, because Holly's all like, you know, the gays.
Right, yeah.
Like, it's really like that. And I'm like, really? Is that what we're doing? Is that what we want? You know how gay women, you know how lesbians always falling in love with straight women. I'm like, are they? Is that what lesbians are doing? And it just felt like, it just gave me a bit of an ick. I was just a bit like, oh. And I just felt like they could have a much nicer conversation about the fact that Robin didn't realise Jane is gay, but also Robin doesn't care.
Yeah.
Jane's gay. Because I love that bit as well. She's like, I don't give a shit that you're gay. She's like, whatever. But instead they just make it a bit icky.
It's interesting, isn't it, that we criticise the interactions about the big issues. Other than the James Remar one, what we said was handled quite well in the bedroom, but like you criticise the fact that Jane told him about Robin's like diagnosis, that she is HIV positive. Like, you know, again, you're critical of the fact that of Holly talking about Jane's sexuality. So it's interesting that in the sharing of these big issues the film wants to focus on, that's where it keeps slipping up over and over and over, which maybe is just symptomatic of who wrote it and of the director, that they themselves don't know how to talk about and present these kind of those issues. They want to do it, but perhaps they haven't done their due diligence. Perhaps they haven't done their research. They haven't spent time with people from these communities, which is, what good writers and good directors and good creatives do in order to tell their story properly. They just wanted to use them as a way to tell a story rather than to tell their story. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. While you're talking, I thought I would look up the writer. The writer's gay.
Okay.
So Don Roos, I think it is gay. Also, I believe he wrote Single White Female, which is an amazing film. Wonderful. But then I wonder if there's, he's written some great films. Anyway, sorry. I do feel like maybe there's that. He's a writer. He's wanting to tell a story about someone who's gay. He is gay. He's in Hollywood in 1995.
Yeah.
Is this as good as he can get it? And it wouldn't surprise me if that was the story behind it, because there's clearly something he wants to say.
Yeah.
Hollywood's just a bit too like, oh, but can you make it a bit less gay?
Yeah, sure. I mean, think of Dallas Buyers Club, which I'm going to get to. That's going to be such an interesting counterpoint to this in terms of like how much either Hollywood or filmmaking or perhaps the viewers, the audience, and what they were willing to see has changed in the 30 years, whatever it is, between that. It's going to be such an interesting like side-by-side comparison, I think, of like what you could say and what people are willing to experience then to now. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And like, especially when you look at his filmography, he's dealing a lot with. So he did Diabolique, which is the American remake of the same title in French, which I'm not going to say. Single White Female. They're two films that are very much, like gay coded films. He wrote The Opposite of Sex, which is, funnily enough, a film about sex. And there's obviously stuff he's wanting to say. I don't know. I mean, I don't know him, but I'm, just looking at his filmography. Yeah, that it feels like maybe his vision wasn't quite what he wanted to get put across.
Diabolique, that's Dangerous Liaisons, is it? That's
No, it's like literally Les Diaboliques.
Oh, okay, all right.
So it's a French film, and it's oh god, it's about a guy who he has a wife and he has a mistress, and he's like abusive, and I don't want to do spoilers from a film from 1996.
He sounds like a great guy.
Yeah. But they end up killing him. But do they?
Oh.
I don't know. But then he stalks them. I don't know. But it's got like lots of sort of sapphic undertones. And so there's the original French, and then there's the American remake. Both are worth a watch. I wouldn't say it's not been a while, not fantastic, but I think they're worth a watch for films that are sort of having fun with what they're doing. Anyway, that's not Boys on the Side.
No, but no, an interesting conversation though, in terms of, we've been quite critical of this and its attempts at trying to try and tell a story, but that's an interesting angle to think about the fact that perhaps, rewrites or butting up against studio execs, or that's too gay. I think you said that. I think that's really interesting that perhaps that was something were pre-Will and Grace at this point, which is sort of one of the big things to really break through, wasn't it? And really be able to tell gay stories that were allowed to have gay people in it. I know that sounds like a weird sentence.
Yeah, and they were allowed to just be normal people.
Yeah.
Because to be very fair to this film, Jane is just a normal person.
Yeah.
She's not a gay person with an issue.
No.
Other
than hating people from Pakistan, no.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty bad.
No, I know what you mean, though. All jokes aside, yes, absolutely. No, that's true. That is true. She is just a normal person. She's not put on a pedestal because of her gayness, and she's not vilified because of her gayness. She's just a person who tries to live her life, and when it's brought up, she's just sort of like in the courtroom scene. She's just sort of like, it's not an issue. Like, why are you making one with a douchebag lawyer?
Yeah, he is such a douchebag, and I do actually love that scene is like really short of her just being like, "Yes, I am a lesbian."
Yeah.
And like that's it. There's no like then the lawyer like massively trying to take her down, and it's like, no.
I should have looked up where he was from, because he was just giving me real like Ellis from Die Hard vibes. He's just like Walter Peck from Ghostbusters vibes. He's just got that kind of like really that late 80s, mid 90s like suit wearing douchiness.
I mean, Ellis is in Die Hard is still like one of my favorite characters committed to screen.
Yeah, sure, of course.
He's amazing. He's so amazing. I mean, I hate him, but in the best way.
Absolutely. Okay. I mean, we've talked for a while about this film. I think quite successfully. When they're really, I wasn't sure what.
I thought we'd be 20 minutes. I thought we'd be 20 minutes. Honestly.
There's not a lot to say about Matthew McConaughey, unfortunately, other than what we said, because it's just he's a bit of a non-entity, not for lack of trying, but poor, thin character on paper and poor direction, I think, in terms of what he wanted from him as an actor. Don't know if you, I mean,
I don't really have anything else to say about him. It's just
no, fair enough. The only thing is, I thought
very bland.
There was one obvious joke they did miss. Like he says "babe" a lot in this. Like babe. That's all he ever refers to Holly as, and he's called Abe. So I don't know why I don't know why there wasn't like Babe-Abraham Lincoln or like Babe Lincoln, or why the baby wasn't called Babe.
You're right.
The baby was called.
We don't find out, do we?
We do.
Do we?
They call it Mary Todd.
I'm sorry, what?
Mary Todd, which isn't that Abraham Lincoln's wife's name? Is that if I remember my American history correctly, which I'm not good at?
I say
Mary Todd. Yeah, that was Abraham Lincoln's wife, right? Mary Todd Lincoln.
Oh my God.
So they named their baby as if it was his wife. That's weird, isn't it? I'm pretty sure that's right.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, I didn't know that's what they called the baby.
Yeah, they definitely call it Mary Todd. Yeah.
I didn't realise.
Yeah, that's a great joke. I think you must have tuned out. It was literally like a drop line right at the end of the movie.
Yeah. I mean, there'd already been so many shockers. I do want to correct myself about Tucson, Arizona, and it has a very high Hispanic or Latino population. So it does make sense that they would have a Dia dos los Muertos. Which is the pronunciation of that.
Nice. I don't know if it's that specifically, but I got that kind of vibe from it.
Yeah, so that makes thematic sense. And to be honest, that's been annoying me. So I am glad that I Googled it, because my American geography is terrible.
All right, shall I read you a little bit? I don't know if you've had any episodes yet, but I've been reading from Matthew McConaughey's Green Lights when I can, when he talks about the movies. So I won't be able to do it every time, but he does briefly touch upon Boys on the Side. So he says, 1 week after signing with William Morris, I got my first audition in Hollywood with the casting director, Hank McCann, for the role of Drew Barrymore's very honest husband, Abe Lincoln, in the film Boys on the Side. They liked my audition enough to schedule a second one for director Herbert Ross 6 weeks later. And then I'm going to jump in his autobiography to 6 weeks later. But I thought that's an interesting place straight away, because you were saying how like kind of green, how fresh he felt here. And this was his first official audition. So actually, although it's his fifth movie in terms of his release schedule, it's the first thing he did after Dazed and Confused.
Yeah.
So that's quite interesting, isn't it? He says, a month into shooting Angels in the Outfield, so that was his third movie. So although he's got this film before it, filmmaking timelines. The studio behind Boys on the Side flew me back to Hollywood for my follow-up audition in front of director Herbert Ross. I've been rehearsing for the part every night after playing baseball and was confident I had a take on my man. Herbert liked my audition and I got offered the role. So he doesn't say a lot about it, really. What does he say? My very first audition in Hollywood had gotten me a second audition that landed me the fourth lead in a major motion picture drama starring Drew Barrymore, Mary Louise Parker, and Whoopi Goldberg. It also got me a major paycheck of 150 grand. So,
Oh,
happy days.
lovely.
He
Yeah.
got paid.
Also, I really find that lovely that it's just a very small thing that he says, but he's like, after playing baseball, I think he said, I came home every day and rehearsed and practiced. And I think we're so used to this mythical sort of like somebody just suddenly becomes a big star.
Mm-hmm.
And with that throwaway line, I've suddenly got a lot more respect for him, knowing that like he wasn't like, I'm just going to nail this. I'm amazing. I've got charisma. It was like, no, I'm going to, for this role, for such a small role in which he's incredibly bland, to know that he put that much effort is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, at this early stage, I mean, it's real clear he's taken everything really seriously. The way he got the role in Days, the way that he got the role for Texas Chainsaw, the way that he, as he says there, when he does Angels in the Outfield, like he trained and really, like he just, it's really interesting seeing the parallels going from the Staith to McConaughey. I mean, they couldn't be more different, obviously, in so many ways, but their gratitude for the place they're in life is pretty similar. I'm going to get to a dark period with McConaughey where he admits himself, like, he didn't like himself, he didn't like the films he was making, and it was really difficult for him.
Failure to Launch, is that one of them?
It's around that time, funnily enough. But around that kind of era where he felt a bit trapped. Other than that, he is just so like, I'm so lucky to do what I'm doing. I'm so grateful. I love it. I'm getting to be in these movies and have these great experiences and go to these countries and live in a nice house and be paid. And very much similar to the Staith, who's like, I don't give a fuck what you say about my movies and my performance. I had a great time making it. The people that enjoy watching my stuff like my stuff. So so I think they're both quite similar in that way. And they both take their craft seriously.
Yeah. And I really appreciate that. I just sort of, I don't know, I think so many actors like live off this, I'm just so charismatic and talented persona, that to actually hear an actor talk about how hard they work, I just think it's really interesting. It's like, you were just saying then about the dark period, and I know you're going to be talking about all of these later, but we've got we've got this 1995, 1996, there's other films, so I'm talking about like his biggest ones. We've got Time to Kill, 1997, Contact, and Amistad, which I actually didn't know he was in. 1998, whatever films, bloody Ed TV in 1999. I forgot about that film. But then he's got 2001, The Wedding Planner, which is a Jennifer Lopez film, and Frailty. Now, I had no idea they were at the same time.
Right, yeah.
I would have put Frailty like a good couple of years before The Wedding Planner, just because of the complete difference in him as an actor. So I would have put it as like, oh, he'd done all this serious stuff, especially after Time to Kill and Frailty. He was like, I'm going to do something fun, a romantic comedy. But actually, that's not the case. So I'm just really interested as this continues, And then weirdly, Reign of Fire is after The Wedding Planner. See, this is not the order I would have put it in. So I'm really interested.
It feels like William Palace, Failure to Launch, How to Use a Gun in 10 Days. Feels like they all should come in a row.
Yeah. So like, I'm really interested when you carry on reading bits from it. I'm not going to jump ahead because I really want to, but I'm not going to. Like, how sort of like these roles all came about, how he's getting them, how he's making these choices. Like, it's actually, when you look at, for me, because I've never looked at his filmography this way, it's actually fascinating. Like, it's really interesting. Yeah, and then we get to like 2012, 2011, and we've got Killer Joe, and then it's just like all serious shit apart from Magic Mike going forward. Like,
yeah, there's a real like, I'm only doing it for my craft attitude, I think, that comes in at a certain point where he's just like burnt out of being the handsome, topless surfer, charismatic Texas accent dude.
Yeah, and I prefer him when he's not the sexy dude. Much prefer him when he's not the sexy dude. I think he's too interesting for that. Anyway.
All right. Should we see what other people think of Boys on the Side?
Yes, let's go for it.
Matthew Winstead says, Boys on the Side is an absorbing, funny, and incredibly aware comedy dramedy about three ladies on a road trip. Whoopi Goldberg as a lesbian lounge singer, Drew Barrymore as a pregnant unmarried mess, Mary Louise Parker, I wish people could see your face, as an uptight woman trying to loosen up who suffers from HIV. I mean, his description of those characters is amazing. That is a bloke writing those, isn't it?
I also enjoy suffers from HIV.
Yeah. The plot is basic, but the interaction between the characters is definitely not. Screenwriter Don Roos creates vivid dialogue and touching scenes, and the cast plays it so well. Barrymore is at her best here. Goldberg is outstanding, and Parker really helps make the film what it is. Matthew McConaughey and Estelle Parsons also give strong supporting performances. The film is long but never dull, and it all ends with a very moving final sequence. So, what do we know?
We're just gonna have to agree to disagree. You know, love what you love, like what you like. Wonderful. I'm very happy for you.
Yeah, it's just, I mean that
sounded
review,
insincere, which I realised, but actually I mean that sincerely. Genuinely mean that sincerely. It didn't hit it for me. You know, give me 5 green tomatoes at Whistle Stop Cafe anytime. I'll be crying at that. I know that's not everybody's cup of tea. You do you, lovely.
What I find interesting about his review is like that first paragraph is really like, ooh. But then it's really supportive. But like,
yeah,
his
and then
description of
he's
the
right about
characters
the
is
performance,
as
well.
But his description of the characters is not right. But what he gets from the movie is really interesting. Go for it, Matthew. Madeline Mouse says, unfortunately, the Boys on the Side were buzzcut cop Matthew McConaughey and racism. And that's her full review. A bit less passionate.
Beautiful. I love it though. Why use loads of words when those are the ones you can use?
100%. And then I might have finally found, we'll have to see. I've been searching for my Lou Shoemaker for season 2. I haven't been able to until this point, but I found Nate Johnson today, who says, this is not inspirational. I am not inspired at all. Boo, Whoopi Goldberg. Boo, Drew Barrymore. Number 32 of 40 of watching Matthew McConaughey's filmography. So it might be, Nate, that we'll be hearing a lot more from you in the future.
Yes, please.
I'll be searching up Nate's reviews for as many McConaughey movies as I can find. All right.
No Lou, the legend.
Not yet, but Nate has a lot to live up to. But if he's got some more reviews of McConaughey, I will be tuning in, seeing what he has to say. I mean, to be fair to this film, it offered 21 million budget. It made 47.4 million. It was obviously a success at the time.
Yeah.
You said you watched it back in the day. I mean, I've never seen this before. I guess, 15-year-old me, funnily enough, was not interested in a movie called Boys on the Side. Although 15-year-old me, if they'd said Drew Barrymore gets her boobs out, maybe I would have just found those scenes to watch.
Yeah. Also obsessed with Drew Barrymore.
Absolutely.
Just so, and early 20s, probably now still.
Yeah, I will definitely be checking out that.
You should. It's so interesting. I'll send you a link.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that. In terms of Matthew McConaughey's filmography, though, is this one of his classic performances and classic movies that everyone should see? Is it worth catching because it's interesting enough, or is it just for Matthew McConaughey completists only, like this mug over here?
Yeah, completists. Completists.
Because of him, or because of the movie, or both?
I actually don't want to be too harsh about this movie because I do think there are things that it's trying to do that I respect and I think are good, but it's so hampered, I think, by the time.
Yeah.
So just doing that research, which I should have done beforehand, but just discussing it with you and talking about it, like, I feel I've had like a real realization. I've had a realization that it is clearly trying to do something that it's not allowed to. and that softens me to it a lot more. But I think it's not an exciting Matthew McConaughey performance. You know, I was just talking about all the other films that he's in following this. Watch all of those. They're amazing. He's amazing. All the casts in those films are amazing. The direction's amazing. All of that sort of stuff. You don't need to watch this to enjoy Matthew McConaughey.
No, true. And I mentioned Forrest Gump as well. And Forrest Gump is shit.
Mike, have you heard that? Mike? When you in chit chat, did you hear that?
Mike, who's on next, actually. So I'm sure we can bring that up again. So it's real interesting. Again, thinking about comparisons to the Staith. So at this point, 5 movies in, Staith had 3 classics, a completist, and a worth catching.
Oh, wow. Okay.
McConaughey has 1 classic, 1 worth catching, and
Dazed and
3
Confused.
completists only.
What's the worth? What was the worth?
Dan said Texas Chainsaw because of how much he was trying. Like, he's trying something out.
Okay.
You'll never really get to see a performance that outlandish from him again.
Yeah.
But everything else around this time, unfortunately, you know, I'd have to agree. You know, guy number 2 in My Boyfriend's Back in a really awful movie where he has 2 lines. Yeah, that's only for completists. As Dave said, like, there's probably a handful of people in the world that have watched that film because Matthew McConaughey's in it.
Yeah.
And Dave and I are now part of that proud club. So it's not a great start to his filmography, but as you said, there are some really outstanding movies coming up.
Yeah. I'm jealous of lots of the ones people are getting to talk about.
Yeah, it's just a bit of a slow start, but you know, he'll find his way. And I'll
You
be
will,
here
and I'm
every step.
really interested in you discussing that more. I get what a realization I've had today. You know, every day is a learning day. Is that
Every day's a
saying?
school day. Yeah,
School day. Thank you.
including right now.
Really?
That's
I need to go back to school. Right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. This is brilliant. I'm looking forward to it. I was disappointed that you had chosen another man. After
Yes.
Jason Statham, but
I know.
I think you've made a good choice.
Well, as you know, like Charlize Theron was actually top of my list, but there's too many movies she's in with the Staith. I had to just cover all the same movies again. And then I really want to do Michelle Yeoh, like probably more than anybody.
Yes.
But a lot of our early Hong Kong movies are hard to get hold of. So what I'm thinking is, across this 2-year period where I'm doing another dude, it might give me the chance to kind of get some rarer movies on DVD and kind of get all those, stockpile them ahead of time and been able to do her filmography.
Oh, I am here for that. Yeah,
She's
awesome.
the best.
Yeah, she really is.
Brill, thank you so much.
No problem at all. Thank you.
And thank you everyone for listening and partaking in this journey with me through the reconnaissance. That was Boys on the Side. Next up in a fortnight, I'm joined by Mike Burton to discuss Eminem's appearance as rental truck guy in Rich Wilkes' Glory Days, for those that are watching along. Until next time, be excellent to each other and make sure you take the time to treat yourself too. I am Jack signing off. Yippee-ki-yay, movie lovers.
Cut.